This is Karna. On the outside, he is a titan. He has the power to change history. But if you look closer into his eyes, you don't see the peace of a victor. You see the burning embers of a man who feels he has been cheated by the universe since the day he was born. Most storytellers tell you that the tragedy of Karna is about his mother abandoning him or the teacher who had cursed him, but we are going deeper. So to understand his pain, we have to look at his very first breath, the breath of a child who was born into a world that had no room for him. His mother was a princess, yet she was paralyzed by a fear so great that she couldn't even give him a name. Instead, she gave him to the river. Karna's first cradle wasn't a palace bed, it was a wooden box, drifting alone on the cold, uncaring currents of the Ganga. Though he was a high-born by blood, the son of Surya himself, but was found by Adhiratha, a humble charioteer in banks of river Ganga, destined to grow up as an outcast by circumstances. This is the Karna Wound, the deep, silent ache of a child. Before he could even speak, the world had already rejected him. Now, to truly understand Karna's restless soul, we have to go back to the arena of Hastinapur. A young man, glowing with the radiance of the sun, steps forward and performs feats of archery that leave the crowd silent. He matches Arjun move for move, arrow for arrow. But then the celebration stops. Before he can be hailed as a hero, he is asked a single devastating question. Who is your father? What is your lineage? Karna, the son of Kunti, born of a divine boon, doesn't know his true origin. He believes he is the son of a chariot driver, or Sutputra. Because he cannot prove a royal bloodline, he is publicly shamed. Kripacharya tells him he has no right to challenge a prince like Arjun. In that moment, the arrow in Karna's hand didn't matter. His talent didn't matter. Only his label, Sutputra, mattered. So this rejection didn't just hurt his feelings. It kind of like forged a shield of bitterness that he would carry it with himself until his very last breath. So let's look at the intellectual conflict here, okay? In Vedic philosophy, there is a difference between the Ahamkar, or the ego, and the Atman, or the true self. Karna's tragedy was that he allowed his Ahamkar, his social identity, to be defined entirely by the eyes of others. He felt that if the world didn't recognize him as a king, he was nothing. When you seek your identity in the mirror of the world, you are always at the mercy of the person holding the mirror. This is why Karna, despite his greatness, never felt enough. Does this sound familiar? Because today we don't use the term Sutputra, we have our own labels. We define our worth by our job titles, or like the brand of the car we own, or how many followers we have on our profile. We live in a digital tournament of Hastinapur every single day. If someone leaves a negative comment, or if we don't get the blue tick of verification, we feel the same sting of rejection Karna felt in that arena. we let a like or a dislike determine our peace of mind. The lesson here is profound, okay? So if you wait for the world to tell you who you are, you will never be at peace. So peace begins at the moment when you realize that your worth is inherent. You are a spark of the divine, the Atman, and literally no label, modern or ancient, can add or subtract from that truth. In the moment of Karna's deepest humiliation, when the world called him a nobody, one hand reached out. Duryodhan, the eldest of the Kauravas, stepped forward. He didn't just offer friendship, he offered a kingdom. He crowned Karna, the king of Anga, on the spot. To Karna, it wasn't just a political move. It was the first time that someone had ever seen him. In his eyes, Duryodhan was his savior. This sparked a sense of gratitude so intense that it became a blindfold. Karna made a vow, "My life, my skill, and my loyalty belong to you." But here is the tragedy. Duryodhan didn't give Karna a crown because he loved him. He gave it to him because he needed a weapon against Arjun. Karna's gratitude was used as a down payment for his soul. So let's again break down the intellectual conflict here. The Vedic tradition speaks of rin, the debts we owe to our parents, or our teachers, or anyone that has ever helped us. It is kind of a sacred duty to repay these debts. However, there is a higher principle called Dharma. Dharma is the cosmic law of righteousness. Karna's mistake was thinking that his rin to Duryodhan was higher than his Dharma. When the tragedy reached its breaking point in the gambling hall of Hastinapur, in a single afternoon of madness and deceit, the Pandavas lost everything: their kingdom, their wealth, and their freedom. But the darkness didn't stop there. It moved toward the loss of human dignity. Duryodhan humiliated Draupadi in that hall. Karna's conscience told him it was wrong. He knew the laws of heaven were being violated. But his loyalty, that heavy, blinding debt to his benefactor, forced him to stay silent, and even worse, to participate in the mockery. So because he chose a person over the truth, he had lost his inner peace long before he had lost his life on the battlefield. We kind of fall into the Karna trap all the time. Have you ever stayed in a toxic job just because the boss gave you a chance because you were a fresher? Or have you ever defended a friend's bad behavior just because you've known them for like 10 years? When we prioritize loyalty to an individual over loyalty to our own values, we create a civil war inside our minds. You cannot have a peaceful life if you are constantly compromising your integrity to pay off a debt from the past. True peace comes from the realization that no favor from another person gives them the right to own your conscience. So gratitude is a virtue, but when it forces you to support what's wrong, it becomes a cage. If you look at Karna's life, it feels like a sequence of unfortunate events. He was cursed by his guru, Parashurama, to forget his mantras when he needed them most. He was cursed by a Brahmin whose cow he accidentally hit. Even the earth itself was said to have cursed him. By the time he reached the battlefield of Kurukshetra, Karna was convinced of one thing: the universe wants me to fail. He saw himself as a man fighting against a stacked deck. And guys, this is what we call a victim mindset. So when you believe that the external forces like the fate, curses, or bad luck are the primary authors of your life, you just stop looking for the powers within. You become a hero of a tragedy, but never the master of your own peace. As Krishna famously tells Arjun in Bhagavad Gita, verse 2.47,
"You have a right to perform your prescribed duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions."
Karna's pain came from his attachment to the fruits, the recognition, the kingdom, the revenge. Peace comes when we do what is right, simply because it is right. Imagine if Karna had practiced Vairagya, the art of detachment. If he had detached himself from his need for social approval, he wouldn't have been vulnerable to Duryodhan's manipulation. There is a moment before the war where Krishna offers Karna everything: the kingdom, the respect of the Pandavas, and the truth of his royal birth. But Karna refuses. He chooses his pride and his loyalty to a dark cause over the divine path. The intellectual lesson is simple but brutal. Peace is impossible as long as your ego is in the driver's seat. If Karna had surrendered his ego to Lord Krishna instead of his pride to Duryodhan, he wouldn't have just been like a tragic hero. He would have been the ultimate warrior of that era, even surpassing many warriors so great as Arjun. Even when Karna was surrounded by darkness, even when he was fueled by bitterness and driven by a thirst for revenge, his word remained a fortress. He was the Danveer, the greatest giver the world had ever seen. Every day at noon, after his prayers to the sun, he would give away whatever was asked of him. He knew that Lord Indra, the king of the gods, had come in disguise to protect Arjun. He knew that if he gave away the divine armor and earrings he was born with, he was literally handing over his life. Yet, with a smile, he cut the armor away from his own flesh. He chose to stay true to his virtue of charity, even when he knew it would lead to his death. This is the peak of Karna's nobility. He was a man who would rather die as a giver than live as a person who broke his word. This creates the Karna Paradox. How can a man be so cruel in the dice hall, yet so incredibly selfless at the riverbank? Vedic thought teaches us that we are all a mix of gunas or qualities. Karna's generosity was his sattva or purity, but it was constantly at war with his rajas or ambition and ego. He shows us that doing good deeds like charity is noble, but they cannot fully erase the peace-destroying effects of adharma. The tragedy of Karna is that he surrendered his life to Indra, but he couldn't surrender his pride to Krishna. When Karna stepped onto the battlefield of Kurukshetra on the 17th day, it was as if the universe itself conspired to settle its accounts. He was the commander of the Kaurav army, yet he was fighting with a heavy heart. He knew the truth of his birth now, that the Pandavas were his brothers, but his loyalty to Duryodhan kept him bound. The climax wasn't just the battle of weapons. It was kind of manifestation of every curse that he had ever carried. As his chariot wheels sank into the mud, his memory failed him. The mantras he had practiced for a lifetime vanished. In that moment, standing on the ground, unarmed and trying to lift his wheel, he looked at Krishna and Arjun and pleaded for the rules of war. But Krishna's response was chilling. Krishna didn't just argue. He held up a mirror. He reminded Karna that Dharma is a shield that only protects those who carry it. He reminded Karna of every time he had broken the rules, when Draupadi was insulted, when the young Abhimanyu was cornered. Finally, Arjun released the fatal Anjalika weapon. The arrow struck with the weight of 1,000 tragedies, and Karna fell, collapsing onto the cold, indifferent mud. There was no crown, no cheers, only the heavy silence of a man who had spent his whole life fighting for a seat that was never his. Krishna stood over the fallen hero, his eyes misting with a rare, profound sorrow. He praised Karna's unmatched strength and peerless bravery, that the world had just lost its greatest, most dangerous, and most misunderstood warrior. So this is the most painful lesson of Mahabharata. We often think that our past mistakes are just forgotten. But in the Kurukshetra of our lives, they often reappear as the mud that traps our wheels. Karna didn't lose because Arjun was a better archer. He lost because he was carrying the weight of his compromises. In the end, Karna is not a villain to be judged, nor is he just a hero to be sympathized. He is a mirror. He shows us what happens when a brilliant soul refuses to heal its inner wounds. He reminds us that all the talent and golden armor in the world cannot protect us from a heart that feels unworthy. We all have a bit of Karna inside us. Is it the search for a validation or perhaps a loyalty that no longer serves your truth? So please just share your thoughts in the comments below. So let's turn this ancient story into a modern conversation on peace. If this video helped you see your own journey a little bit more clearly, then hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into Vedic wisdom for the modern world. Until next time, stay mindful, stay purposeful, and find your own peace. Namaste.